Imagine that you are a doctor. You enter a sick room in ancient Greece and you use all your senses. Your eyes, you look at the patient, his attitude, his complexion, his color, what comes in, food, air, drinks, what goes out, stools, urine, sweat, blood, maybe vomit. You use your ears. You listen to the patient, to his or her words, or if he or she keeps silent. You hear what the patient says, and you also listen carefully if necessary. You put your ear against the patient's back and you hear maybe the cracking of leather or the boiling of vinegar. You use your nose, the smell of urine, sweat, maybe even your tongue, the taste of tears, maybe even of urine, and your hands, your fingers, you feel the pulse, you feel hot, cold, moist, dry, and you write down everything what you have observed, your observations, on your writing pad. You use your stylus. And such observations, such clinical case histories have come down to us in the Hippocratic corpus. And we can still read them. And we read all the symptoms and signs. And then suddenly in the case history you read, like the servant of Hippolytus. And suddenly you meet a patient of flesh and blood, a woman. And then you realize that this is not academic theory or fiction, but real life. And so by reading, you make the patient, a patient of 2,400 years ago, you make him or her alive. That's what I'm trying to do here at Morphomata, studying patients' history in a comparative perspective. I use clinical treatises like the Corpus Hippocraticum, Greek texts, inscriptions, papyri, novels, poems, literature, archaeology, iconographic sources, and so on and so forth. And I try to understand these patients by putting them in their original context. And then I realize, and hopefully my readers, because I'm writing a book, will also realize that what seems alien becomes more familiar. And what at first sight seemed familiar is, au fond, could be more alien than we might have expected. And so in this process of understanding, we learn a lot about ancient history, about ancient culture, and also about ourselves, about our own society. And the result is often important also for modern medicine, because today's doctors have a lot to do with patients from several cultural backgrounds, several cultural paradigms. Well, this is my work here at Morphomata. Disease is not a simple thing. It is dependent on the cultural background, through the ages, through cultures. A doctor is not always a doctor. A patient is not simply a patient. These are elusive terms. They change and we can't grasp them, even if we try hard. I discuss these things here with my colleagues, the fellows, or studying other disciplines, like the history of early photography, like modern French poetry, Belgian painting in the later 19th century, and so on and so forth. Fascinating. Byzantinology and so on. And by studying what seems to be elusive, we try to find out what is behind it, what changes and what remains the same. Thinking images. We try to find as much as possible concrete objects to see what is behind it and to follow their evolution through history and through the cultures. This is fascinating work, this exchange of learning, and well, the working environment is excellent. I'm here in my office and sometimes I hear the blackbird singing, and sometimes, believe it or not, an eichhörnchen comes in peeping through the window, a squirrel. And well, we are here in Cologne, which is a very, very interesting city, cultural, world heritage, exhibitions, concerts, a lot of interesting walks around the city. It's marvelous to be here, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity.